7 insane things that happened after Jesus died. Number 1, there was a major earthquake. The first event that followed Jesus' death was a powerful earthquake. This was no ordinary tremor. It was a divine response to the death of the Son of God. According to Matthew 27:51-52, the earth quaked and the rocks split apart. This was more than just a geological event. It was a cosmic signal that something monumental had occurred. In the ancient world, earthquakes were often seen as acts of the divine, and in this case, it was as if the very earth was responding to the death of its creator. The ground beneath the cross shook, symbolizing the significance of the moment. The shaking earth and splitting rocks were not merely physical phenomena, but symbolic of the spiritual rupture that had taken place, the tearing of the veil between God and humanity. The earth itself bore witness to the cataclysmic event of the crucifixion, as creation mourned the death of the one through whom it was made. This earthquake also had a profound impact on those present. It was a terrifying reminder that the death of Jesus was no ordinary execution, but a divine act with cosmic implications. The earth's reaction reflected the enormity of what had just happened. The Son of God had died, and the world would never be the same. This earthquake serves as a reminder that the natural world is deeply connected to the spiritual realm, and that the events of the crucifixion were felt on every level of creation. Number 2, the opening of the tombs. The earthquake did more than just shake the earth. It caused the tombs to open. Matthew 27:52-53 uniquely records that following the death of Jesus, many bodies of the saints who had died were raised to life. These resurrected saints entered the holy city, Jerusalem, and appeared to many people. This extraordinary event underscores the power of Jesus' death to bring life even to those who had already passed away. The resurrection of these saints was not just a miraculous occurrence, it was a foreshadowing of the resurrection that all believers can look forward to. In a sense, this event was a preview of the ultimate victory over death that Jesus' own resurrection would soon accomplish. The significance of this event cannot be overstated. The saints who were raised to life were a living testimony to the power of God, a foretaste of the resurrection life that Jesus had come to bring. These resurrected saints were likely revered figures from Israel's history, heroes of faith who had died in anticipation of the Messiah's coming. Their resurrection at the moment of Jesus' death is a powerful affirmation of his identity as the long-awaited Messiah and the fulfillment of God's promises. Moreover, the fact that these resurrected saints entered Jerusalem and appeared to many people means that their resurrection was witnessed by numerous individuals. This would have been an undeniable testimony to the truth of what had just occurred. Jesus' death was not an end, but a beginning. It marked the dawn of a new era in which death would no longer have the final word. The resurrection of these saints was a sign that Jesus' victory over death was already beginning to unfold, even before his own resurrection. Number 3, the tearing of the temple veil. One of the most significant events that occurred at the moment of Jesus' death was the tearing of the temple veil. Matthew 27:51 describes Jesus crying out for a final time with a loud and agonizing voice, voluntarily surrendering his spirit. His spirit was released from his body in submission to his Father's plan, and at once the veil of the Holy of Holies in the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. This veil separated the Holy of Holies, the most sacred part of the temple, where God's presence was said to dwell, from the rest of the temple, where the priests and worshippers gathered. The tearing of the veil was a powerful symbol of the new reality that Jesus' death had brought about. In the Jewish temple, the veil represented the separation between God and humanity. Only the high priest could enter the Holy of Holies, and only once a year, on the Day of Atonement, to offer a sacrifice for the sins of the people. But with the tearing of the veil, this barrier was removed. Through Jesus' death, the way to God was opened for all people, not through the blood of animals, but through the precious blood of Christ. This moment marked the end of the Old Covenant and the beginning of the new. The temple, which had been the center of Jewish worship, was now superseded by Christ, who became the true and living way to God. The tearing of the veil signified that the sacrificial system of the Old Covenant was fulfilled and completed in Jesus. No longer would humanity be separated from God by sin. Through Jesus, all who believe have direct access to the Father. The significance of this event is further highlighted by the fact that the veil was torn from top to bottom, indicating that it was God Himself who tore it. This was not a human act. It was a divine intervention, a dramatic statement that the old order had passed away and a new order had begun. The tearing of the veil is a vivid reminder that through Jesus, the barriers that once separated us from God have been removed, and we can now approach Him with confidence and boldness. Number 4, the darkness over the land. Another remarkable event that occurred after Jesus' death was the darkness that covered the land. According to Matthew 27:45, from noon until 3 in the afternoon, there was darkness over all the land. This was not a natural eclipse or a passing storm. It was a supernatural darkness, a divine sign of mourning and judgment. This period of darkness fulfilled the prophecy found in Amos 8:9, where the Lord declared that He would make the sun go down at noon and darken the earth in broad daylight. In the ancient world, darkness was often associated with mourning, and in this case, it symbolized the grief of creation at the death of its Creator. The darkness was a visible manifestation of the cosmic significance of Jesus' death. But this darkness was also a sign of something more profound, the judgment that Jesus bore on the cross. As He hung there, Jesus took upon Himself the sins of the world, and the darkness was a representation of the separation from God that sin causes. Jesus endured this darkness so that we might walk in the light. The darkness over the land was a powerful reminder of the cost of our salvation. Jesus, the light of the world, was momentarily engulfed in darkness so that we might be brought into His marvelous light. The significance of the darkness is further emphasized by the timing. It occurred at the 6th hour, when the sun would normally be at its brightest. This supernatural darkness was a dramatic statement that something extraordinary was happening. It was as if the light of the world had been extinguished, and creation itself was plunged into mourning. Yet this darkness was not the end. It was the prelude to the greatest triumph in history, the resurrection of Jesus and the defeat of sin and death. Number 5, the recognition by the Roman centurion. The 5th event is the recognition of Jesus' divinity by the Roman centurion who was overseeing His crucifixion. After witnessing the earthquake and the dark over the land, the centurion and those with him were filled with shock and awe, exclaiming, "Truly this was the Son of God." This declaration is significant because it comes from a Roman soldier, a Gentile, and an executioner, no less. The centurion had likely overseen many crucifixions, but something about this one was different. Perhaps it was the way Jesus bore His suffering with dignity and forgiveness. Perhaps it was the supernatural signs that accompanied His death. Whatever the reason, this hardened soldier recognized the truth of who Jesus was. The centurion's recognition of Jesus as the Son of God is a powerful moment in the narrative. It shows that even those who were far from God, those who were complicit in Jesus' death, could recognize His divinity. It's a reminder that Jesus' sacrifice on the cross was for all people, Jew and Gentile alike. It also foreshadows the spread of the gospel to the Gentile world and the universal nature of Jesus' mission. This moment of recognition is also a testimony to the transformative power of the cross. The centurion, a man who was accustomed to death and likely desensitized to human suffering, was moved by what he saw at the cross. The events surrounding Jesus' death, the darkness, the earthquake, and most importantly, Jesus' demeanor, were so compelling that they led him to acknowledge Jesus as the Son of God. This was not a casual statement. It was a profound confession of faith, made by a man who had just witnessed the most significant event in human history. Number 6. The descent into Hades. While not explicitly mentioned in the Gospels, the Apostle Peter's writings suggest that after his death, Jesus descended into Hades. In 1 Peter 3:18, it is written that Christ was put to death in the body, but made alive in the Spirit, in which he went and proclaimed to the spirits in prison. This event, often referred to as the harrowing of hell, signifies Jesus' victory over death and his proclamation of that victory to the spirits of the dead. It's a powerful image of Jesus entering the realm of the dead, not as a victim, but as a conqueror, proclaiming the defeat of sin and death. This descent was not about suffering, but about triumph, Jesus declaring his victory to all who had died before his coming. The descent into Hades also ties into the resurrection of the saints that we mentioned earlier. Jesus' death and descent signaled that the power of death had been broken. The gates of Hades could not prevail against the one who holds the keys to death and Hades. This event emphasizes that Jesus' victory over death was comprehensive. It extended to every realm, even to the depths of Hades. The harrowing of hell is a profound and mysterious event that has captivated the imagination of Christians for centuries. It's a reminder that Jesus' death was not just a moment of defeat, but a cosmic victory. By descending into Hades, Jesus demonstrated that there is no place, no realm, no situation that is beyond his reach. His victory over sin and death is total and complete, and it is available to all who believe in him. Number 7. The burial and guarding of the tomb. Finally, the 7th event is the burial of Jesus and the measures taken to secure his tomb. After Jesus' death, Joseph of Arimathea, a wealthy follower of Jesus, went to Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor, to request permission to take Jesus' body down from the cross. After Pilate granted his request, Joseph carefully wrapped Jesus' body in a clean linen cloth and placed it in a new tomb that he owned. This was significant because it fulfilled the prophecy in Isaiah 53:9, which foretold that the Messiah would be buried in the tomb of a rich man. However, the chief priests and Pharisees, remembering Jesus' prophecy that he would rise on the third day, went to Pilate and requested that the tomb be secured. Pilate granted their request, and the tomb was sealed and guarded by Roman soldiers. The guarding of the tomb is a critical detail in the resurrection narrative. Despite all human efforts to keep Jesus in the grave, these measures would ultimately be in vain. The sealed tomb and the Roman guard only served to emphasize the miraculous nature of what was to come. When Jesus rose from the dead, it was clear that no earthly power could contain the divine. The securing of the tomb was also a testimony to the truth of the resurrection. The disciples couldn't have stolen the body, as some skeptics claimed, because the tomb was under guard. The resurrection was an act of God, witnessed by those who came to the tomb on the third day and found it empty. This event also underscores the fear and concern of the religious leaders. Despite their efforts to silence Jesus, they were aware of his prophecies about rising from the dead. Their attempts to secure the tomb reveal their anxiety about the power of Jesus' words and their fear that he might actually do what he said he would. But as we know, no human effort can thwart the plans of God. These 7 events that followed the death of Jesus are more than just historical curiosities. They are profound signs that point to the significance of Jesus' crucifixion and the victory he won over sin, death, and the grave. Each of these events carries deep spiritual meaning and serves as a testament to the power of Jesus' sacrifice. From the shaking of the earth to the tearing of the temple veil, from the darkness over the land to the resurrection of the saints, these moments are divine affirmations that Jesus' death was not the end, but the beginning of a new covenant, a new hope, and a new life for all who believe. As we reflect on these events, let's remember that they are not just stories from the past, but realities that continue to shape our faith today. The death of Jesus was a turning point in history, and the events that followed are eternal reminders of his love, power, and victory. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the 7 extraordinary events that followed the death of Jesus. If you found this video insightful, please consider subscribing to the channel so you won't miss any of our future explorations of faith and history. Until next time, may God bless you and keep you in His grace.